This video will cover a couple of the more advanced features in Cycle, vertex parameters and deformers. Each vertex in any area of Cycle has at least three properties, an x and y position and a sharpness value. In the domains that allow curve morphing, vertices can also have up to three other properties, a time position, a keyscale position, and a mod position. The vertex parameters panel is where the values of selected vertices are shown, and also where they are set. If more than one vertex is selected, then the values displayed are the average of the group. The x and y axes can change depending on the domain, and the labels adjust accordingly. For example, in the Spectrum Filters 2D editor, the x-axis is frequency and the y-axis is magnitude. The purpose of the sliders is to do a couple of things. Number one, if you have just a single vertex selected, the sliders indicate which corner of the vertex cube it is in. For example, generally, if the key value is 1, you know it's a vertex state at the high end of the key scale. Secondly, when many verts are selected, you can change parameters for all of them at once. Often you might want to translate a group of vertices or reduce their curve sharpness. Notice when you perform any editing, the window becomes focused and it is highlighted with a blue outline. This indicates that what is shown in the parameters panel is the vertex selection from that window. There's a couple of graphic elements to the right of the sliders, and that brings me to the next topic. Deformers. Deformers are what I call a nonlinear shape. In most uses, they act like an automation of a vertex parameter, like its position. You'll notice that vertex paths over time are typically a straight line, but if you observe the wave shape progression of a natural sound, most likely you'll see that the patterns are not straight lines, but rather irregular or chaotic. Even in synthesized sounds, an exponential curve is more common and sounds more natural than a linear path. Now, with enough subdivisions and line segments, we could create virtually any path. But this greatly increases the complexity of the wireframe. Too much complexity makes editing cumbersome and hinders the creative process. So deformers are what solve this problem. In the deformers window, we have an editor where we can create a simple two-dimensional shape. In the vertex parameters panel, we can assign this path to a vertex so that it deforms the linear trajectory that it would have taken over some range. As usual, time is the range that deformers usually vary over, but you can also make them span between curve points. This makes it possible to replace part of the smooth curve with a more detailed shape. Here's a few examples of this feature. You can make additive peaks, complicated static wave shapes, a filter roll-off curve, or harmonic phase diffusion. This last one can be used to good effect for plucked sounds such as an acoustic guitar or a harpsichord. A somewhat hidden feature is that when a deformer is assigned to replace the actual curve, the sharpness parameter, which would have been unused, now acts as a gain multiplier for the deformer. And since you can also add a deformer to the sharpness parameter, this enables some really great sonic effects. You can also add noise to the deformer path, and this can be used in several ways. You can make a noise oscillator, add breathiness by adding noise to the magnitude or phase spectrum, or add jitter to part of the wave shape, and this can improve realism in some cases. We can see there's a knob for changing the gain of the deformer of some vertex. This amplifies the effect of the deformer. Deformers have some limitations, particularly that they cannot morph, as of version 1.2. When you assign a deformer to a vertex, it's shared between all its 8 vertex states. That is mostly so a deformer can fulfill its function as an efficient and simple way to add detail. That said, because curve sharpness is a morphable parameter, the gain of some deformers can change across morphing ranges, and naturally the position of the start and end points can move around. If you really need to make a complex path that morphs, you need to use the axe tool and chop the line into smaller segments, each of which can transform on its own. To add another deformer path, simply click the plus icon in the controls to the left of the deformer window. And as you'd expect, to remove a path, you click the minus icon. So that's all there is to know about deformers. I hope you learned something from this video, and thank you for watching.